Andre, welcome to Mint. What is going on, my friend? Thanks for being on.
Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it. Not
Dude,
much, man. Just enjoying the day.
I'm excited to have you guys on. I've been watching you guys for a minute now. I think we got connected when one of your buddies that's working with you at Soundmint reached out and was like, yo, you got to check out what we're doing at Soundmint. It's the sickest thing in the world, blah, blah, blah. And here we are today, part of season 5. And I wanted to have you on. We're celebrating 3 themes, okay? Music, obviously, you have a big background in music. We're also doing video and CCO licensing, which I know Soundmint has a cross between CCO to an extent and the music
Mhm.
side of things as well. So before we get into Soundmint, what you guys are doing, I always like to start with an intro. So, Andre, who are you? What does the world need to know about you? And how did you get your start into crypto more specifically?
That's a good question. My name's Andre. Obviously, I come from music primarily. Crypto's pretty new to me in some ways. I think like most people, I got started in like 2017 and I got burnt really bad. I just lost a lot of money. And that was like it was a good way to start and also a bad way. I learned a lot, obviously, because it burnt me, but also, moving into it, I found all these projects that I thought were super cool, but I didn't really touch crypto for a while since 2017. And then um, you know, Paris and Brian, my two colleagues that I founded Soundmint with, came to me with this idea while I was still running Trap Nation, which I started when I was 15. And they, went into this, long, lengthy conversation about how NFTs are taking over, and I saw these people from the music industry, eventually kind of transition to NFTs, and I thought, wow, I should be, paying attention to this. This looks really interesting. I made a Twitter, started following a lot of people, and then I kind of took the plunge from the whole Trap Nation thing to into Soundmint. And at first, it was more kind of just like me consulting, kind of advising a little bit, seeing where I could find my fit, and then eventually now fully transitioned into like a CEO position at the company. And one of the co-founders as well.
So, what was it like starting Trap Nation or the Nations in general? It's one of the biggest platforms. I remember when I was in high school, 2018, 2019, one of my homies, Gavin, from King Cavaliers, he got
Yeah, yeah.
featured on the Nations, on Trap Nation. And that's around the first time I kind of came across uh, the brand. But what was it like kind of like building out that platform, building out millions of subscribers, and kind of defining your own corner in the music industry?
Yeah, it's a good question, man. Honestly, I never thought I would work in music ever, or grow a brand, or be on social media at all. It just kind of happened by a miracle almost. But I was never. I started when I was 15, so before I was 15 though, before I even got into YouTube, I was still like I was a really big video gamer. I played a lot of games with my friends, and I played Runescape primarily for
Let's
all
go.
my life. So much time in my life was spent on that game. But I was in clans all the time, and clans are basically just like the communities and games that you go do stuff with, quests or whatever it is, kill monsters. And we'd always share music in these clans. And at the time, like Spotify wasn't really big, I think, in the US yet. SoundCloud was still coming up, and YouTube wasn't really like a music streaming service per se, but it was a place where you could discover music subsequently. So what I would do is I'd found electronic music, I think through Twitch. I was watching like Spark Mac or something like that. And I heard Skrillex and I was like, oh my God, it's insane. And I looked up on YouTube and I found all these channels like UKF Dubstep and All Trap Music, like all
Yeah.
these curators. I didn't know what they were at the time. And I just thought, wow, this is like easy way to share music. I'm going to do the same. So I started a channel called All Trap Nation, and all I did was just upload music that I listened to on the side that shared with my friends. And that was just the easiest way to share it at the time. But I started to realize I was like, oh, I should start like a brand around it. So I started a brand around it. And I kept running it as kind of like a side hobby, primarily because I just wanted to do something other than do homework or study or whatever it is. It was just another side hobby to develop. And, it was a lot of fun at the time, and then time went on, and eventually just kept growing, incrementally every day, like a staircase almost. And at one point, I think I uploaded like a remix of a Miley Cyrus Wrecking Ball, I think it's called, like one of her like big singles back
Yeah.
then, and it just blew up. This is when Vine was really really big as a social media platform,
Mm.
and Vine was a massive, like it was like that first social media app that really catapulted or changed trajectory in terms of marketing for the music industry, because nobody really looked at social media apps as full marketing like methods for their singles, and Vine was really that first like thing that took it to that level. And I didn't realize that at the time, but when I uploaded the Miley Cyrus thing, it blew up on Vine, and then all those people from Vine followed over to my channel. And then from there, I was just like, I feel like probably one of my biggest skill sets or like attributes is I'm not a super smart guy or like very clever guy. It's just when I get good opportunities, I know when to fully go on them, like to take advantage of them, I guess. And I just saw this as like the only golden opportunity I'm probably gonna have in my life to change everything from there. So I just looked at it, I was like, all right, this worked. So let's do it again. So I just got another remix of another Miley Cyrus song and did it again, and it blew up again. And from there, it was just kind of all history because it was just, I started learning like basically like patternistic based like business approaches to everything. So like building systems and scaling. And I realized I need more people on my team, even at like 15 or 16, that could do what I was doing, but for other genres as well, other than just trap music. So I brought on some friends like curate other channels, and then yeah, I just kept at it, and eventually last year of high school, I graduated, took a year off, didn't go to college, and then moved down to Los Angeles and like hired my first like formal
Nice.
employee, and
Got it.
then started a record label, publishing company, and yeah, recently within the last 3 months, sold the majority stake to Create Music Group, which is an independent
Crazy.
music distribution company.
So let's talk about two things for a sec, okay? Your time playing RuneScape, because I was a huge RuneScape head, okay? And I always meet more and more people that started like their childhood or remember a core piece of their childhood in RuneScape, and now they're in crypto for whatever reason, okay?
Yeah,
And two, I want to talk to you about growth strategies and like hacking views and hacking subscribers and if you use any tactics. But for RuneScape, okay, number one, RuneScape. How do you think playing RuneScape has translated into you kind of understanding the world of Web3 and the world of crypto? Is there any
it's good.
similarities or are there
Yeah,
any similarities?
yeah, it's a really good question. It's pretty funny because I feel like every time I've talked to people, and this is not the first time people have spoken about like similarities between RuneScape and I guess like
Yeah,
Web3. Yeah, there's a bunch of similarities. I mean, I think like at the end of the day, it was a time period in a lot of people's lives. Looking back at even my own time period, but now being able to reflect, that period of the internet was so like magical, but also scary because there were so many new innovations happening. This is when like 4chan was super big still, and like Reddit was going crazy and like blowing people like musicians up and just topics up, and it was kind of sparking like independent, I guess like discovery, like information discovery or something like that. But in terms of RuneScape, it was in this period where there weren't like a lot of advanced video games out. So and it was very like economic based. So it's like I'm sure everybody remembers. If you played RuneScape, you remember the Grand Exchange, and the Grand Exchange is like, it's you go and
iconic.
sell. Yeah, iconic. You sell. You learn to trade. You get scammed. You learn humiliation, embarrassment, responsibility, how to look out for scammers, hackers, fishers, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And it's just like it just throws you in that world. I think that you can't get in other video games per se. Maybe I guess like World of Warcraft is another one you could say is pretty similar in that sense. But I think Web3 is very like do it yourself, independent, and you need a lot of responsibility and humiliation sometimes based on whether you fail, whether you make out well. But I think it's the same thing with RuneScape. Like it's just you get dived into this fucking massive game and everybody's trading things, and obviously with gold in the game and all these items, like it's basically the NFT market now, just without the verification part, without the blockchain back then.
You know, one of my fondest memories is doing a lot of these quests for like what's it called? Just like the day-to-day quest of advancing yourself and getting more XP and boosting up your 99 score and all that stuff. And that's very reminiscent of for me at least of what's happening in crypto, of getting involved with all these projects and trying different things and leveling up like your OGness for your wallet address, and
Yeah,
being able to tap into different projects, protocols, DeFi pools, all these different things. Another thing, side tangent, the amount of times I've tried to get a fire cape and I've actually fucking failed at doing that
yeah,
is
yeah.
crazy. Also, getting party hats and all the firecrackers and all the unique like one of ones or one of 100s that they've
Hmm.
released prior to the game going like mainstream. Because when you saw someone with a party hat, you knew they were OG. So when you see
Yeah,
someone with a crypto punk or you see someone with a bored ape, either they've been OG, they collected it on the mint day, or they just have a lot of money, and sets their
yeah,
status in the real world, I guess. Very
yeah,
reminiscent of RuneScape. Okay,
yeah.
so that's RuneScape. Okay, what about growth strategies and growth hacking, Trap Nation or the nations, and getting millions of subscribers? I know you built it at a different time than what we're at today, with YouTube and the algorithms and how people get paid and all that stuff. But how do you growth hack millions and millions of subscribers? The way you put it, you just post a link online, and just like that, you get views and you get
Yeah.
virality. But I doubt, I maybe it was like the first time, but as you progressed, I'm sure you kind of picked up different tactics, different strategies, connected with other YouTubers that share different insight. I'd assume. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. But how do you go into growth hacking a channel and a brand like that online?
Yeah, it's a good question. Honestly, it's a little bit different for Trap Nation. Like, I'm sure if anybody's familiar with like the YouTube landscape, like you're familiar with Mr. Beast or like,
Yeah.
PewDiePie and stuff like that. And those channels, I think, when it comes to like actual vlogging or personality driven like content, and everything is oriented around growth hacking. So if you ever watch like an interview with Mr. Beast, he can go on for 10 hours, just how he follows all these different systems to make sure his videos do well. For Trap Nation, it's a little different because I follow a routine, or the channel, the brand company now follows a routine where every day, basically at the same time, almost the same time, back then at least, I would wake up and upload a remix of a song, or just like an electronic song in general. And I was delivering content based on people's routines. So I saw that like views on the channel would skyrocket every day from Monday to Friday, right before school starts, or right during school starts in the morning, and then right after.
Mm,
Which is like, that makes sense, because if you're going to school or going to work or in the office,
hmm.
you're going to be listening to this channel from like 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. And then after, when you get home, 3 p.m. to like 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. Saturday, Sundays always went down. But I play it to my advantage. So I would, make sure I was uploading always when people would get a notification going to work or going to school or something like that. And I'd always follow a consistent sound. And I knew that the biggest kind of like, back then at least, driving factor for YouTube recommending your videos was just audience retention, and then how many people of your subscribers are going back to your videos over and over and over again. I guess like audience retention at that point as well. So I just play that to my advantage. Then over time, I started to learn that like, thumbnails were a huge player driver, visuals were a huge driver. As much things that I could do, or different opportunities that I could implement in the channel to keep people in the channel, but also get new people, new eyes into the channel. That helps YouTube's algorithm push your content even more. But I didn't have the luxury of doing things like Mr. Beast, where he makes these really eye-popping thumbnails with the red text circles, the face and stuff like that. I just had to play to the Trap Nation logo and the colors that I used in my visualizer, which I think were a massive, you know, help in blowing up the channel to full popularity. Um, but after that, it was just, I just kept it really consistent. It's just routine, honestly. Making sure I was tagging the right tags like EDM, electronic music, etc. But honestly, there's not like a huge secret to growth hacking and YouTube. The biggest, I guess, like tip that I'll give anybody, it's just audience retention. The longer that you can keep people on your videos, the more YouTube will recommend your video to people, because naturally YouTube is a for-profit business. So they want people on their website longer than any other website possible. The longer those people are on YouTube's website, the more they're going to benefit the creators who are getting those people on their
Yeah.
website. And you can do that in many different ways. Just for us, that was our method. For Mr. Beast, he has his own. I'm sure if you're like a podcaster or a YouTuber that does vlogs, you'll have those specific methods to those individuals as well as creators.
Yeah, I haven't really cracked the code just yet on YouTube. I feel like I'm getting more like a bigger audience on Spotify and Apple Music and on audio. It's actually my biggest platform and my biggest reach, and still trying to figure out how do you growth hack YouTube. And as a creator, when you're very much like a one man show for the most part that's doing this full time, you have so much responsibility and so much duty to kind of master each platform that you publish on to
Yeah.
reach its peak virality, right? So with time, so shout out to all my YouTube viewers. I love you guys. Okay, so I want to talk to you about more of your time in high school for a minute. Were you the coolest kid in high school?
No,
You were
it
not.
was quiet. No,
Despite, were you, well, I mean, well, did people know what you were doing in high school? Like, were people?
no, not really.
Why not?
Not until I graduated, basically,
Oh,
or
okay.
the year of graduation. That was when. But also, just full transparently, the first school that I went to in high school was very small. Like, there was only maybe 60 to 70 kids per class, and it was
Oh,
uh, sixth grade. No, sorry, it was seventh grade to 12th grade in one school. So it was very tiny. And then last year of high school for my senior year, I moved from New Jersey to like Menlo Park in California.
Got it.
And then that school was 1,000 kids per grade. It was 9 to 12. So I was in this. I'm not like a very like a sociable person. So when I moved, it was like, I only had a few friends in that high school. And then I moved to the new high school. It's like, well, I think I was making like 100 grand a year at that point when I was
Mm-hmm.
17 or 18, moving to
Jeez.
this new school. So at that point, I was just like, oh, this is totally going to be my future. I really need to like pursue it. And then my mindset is like, if I do something, I become obsessive about it, and I can't let anything else get me out of that like tunnel vision that I get, which is also a huge pro, but it's also a huge con. So when I went to the new high school, I was just like, all right, I'm not making any friends. I'm gonna be fucking miserable. I'm gonna cut all my classes as much as possible just so I can get my bare minimum credits. And then that's what really helps me like grow the channel, because I was just on this like, again, like this really obsessive routine clock where I'd wake up at like 4:30 a.m., work from 4:30 to like 9, go to school, get back at 2:30, and then just like, work my ass off and just continue that for a year straight. And that was like that. So that didn't help like my social life, but
Damn, I could
obviously it got me
imagine that
here.
character in high school. I can genuinely imagine that person. Oh my
It's
god.
a kid that you never notice, honestly. Like I was a kid
Yeah.
that would just walk the halls and like nobody would ever notice me because I'm the new kid and like I don't really talk to anybody. But I had a few friends. It just wasn't like, I didn't make effort whatsoever, past that.
I feel like you could have thrown the sickest high school parties and you just chose not to. From all the
Definitely.
connections and all the network that you built for yourself, you
Yeah.
could have definitely became that kid that everybody knew in high school. But I also understand the idea of being focused and keeping your head down and staying in your lane and all that.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I would imagine like so okay, a couple things. I very much relate to that to an extent. When I was in college, I did well in community college. So I did 2 years in community college before transferring into like upper grad, like the major university. And when I was in community college, I was doing well. I was working at a few jobs, studying, getting straight A's, blah blah blah. But when I hit USC, I was sucking. I was absolutely miserable. And you were actually the opposite. Like you were just trying to like pass by school just to focus on what made you dough, what made you happy. For me, it was very much I sucked my first semester in college. I ate shit. I failed all my exams, and I realized I was putting so much energy locking myself in these rooms and studying that none of it is paying off. And if I were to put that energy into something else, I would have done exceptionally better. So I said, fuck it, I'm just gonna pass, get the bare minimum, and focus on all the extracurricular stuff. And ended up getting
Yeah.
into crypto through that as well, starting a crypto club, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I really relate to that mentality. I really relate to that mindset. Obviously, in different contexts, I wasn't bringing in six figures at the time. I was maybe spending
Yeah.
spending six figures at the time. But yeah, I digress. Okay, I want to backtrack more and transition into music and Web3. Okay, so obviously, building the nations, building out one of the most successful YouTube channels, EDM channels on YouTube. Uh, Definitely taught you things about the music industry, right? As someone maybe you didn't intentionally try to learn about it, but definitely taught you about how things work, right? And I'm curious to get your point of view because a lot of what the ethos behind Web3 music is removing the middleman, right? Removing the scummy deals of artists getting themselves into of doing like 80-20 rev shares and getting these upfront pays. I know from what I understand doing research, you guys didn't have the upfront to give people more, so you were able to pay them periodically more frequently than the record labels were able to. But backtrack even more. What are some of the biggest lessons you learned on the music industry? Right. What are the biggest takeaways that have kind of shaped your understanding of how to approach Soundmint, for example? Because I'm sure there's a lot of relatability and cross lessons that you can kind of like go back and forth on.
Yeah. There's a lot for sure. I mean, honestly, with the Soundmint stuff, it's really great because I made like there's this weird like I guess like mental effect of like being thrown into something so challenging at a younger age, because I think you have such a faster way to learn and improve. At least I did. I feel like I did for sure, and I use like all those mistakes that I made then to my advantage now with Soundmint. But with the music industry, like people, it's a weird industry because people romanticize it and they flaunt it as like this perfect or idealistic uh, thing that everybody wants to be a part of. It's very cool. It's very mysterious. Nobody really understands it. And it's all kind of on purpose, to be honest. Like it's all run by major corporations and companies, like most industries. It's slowly becoming more independent based on the creators that are a part of it and contributing to its growth. But what I've learned from it is there's a lot of successful people in the music industry that shouldn't be successful. I think that just ended up getting in there because they were friends with the right person who were an A&R, or they signed the right artist, and that's like what catapulted their career. And then since then they haven't done anything, and they're just like riding a wave or something like that. And it just made me realize it's like I always thought when I first got into the music industry when I was much younger, like 17 or 18, I thought that I was always like the dumbest kid in the room kind of thing. It was like everybody would look at you like you're this young kid, you got super lucky, and they're going to try and take advantage of you. And then, over time they started to realize we're like, oh fuck, like that didn't work out for us. Like this guy is actually, continually growing and like scaling, building your own company. Um, and I just realized it's like just put your head down and just get your shit done, and do what you think works best for you. That was me talking to myself in that scenario. And I'm just using that in Web3 as well. Like I feel like Web3 is very um, obviously there's a lot of bad media coverage about it, but I think from the outsider's view, everybody looks at it as just like a bunch of digital JPEGs getting traded, digital JPEG monkeys getting traded for half millions of dollars, and people are on Twitter just for 24 hours a day, never sleeping kind of thing. And it just doesn't have a good perspective. And I think for me, and even inside like Web3, I think a lot of people on Twitter, it can be very toxic sometimes. And I think people get sucked up into this vacuum of like information and they can't get out of it. So for me, I'm just in this kind of like barrier where I'm just like, all right, head down. I'm going to continue to build this product. I don't care what anybody has to say. I don't care what the community says about the floor. I don't care about the fact that we didn't make somebody $100,000 in a month based on buying our NFTs. I just put my head down and just get to work, and just continue to push through. And I think that's what I've learned the most from the music industry. Although I wouldn't even say it's music related. It's just growing a business in it for
Yeah.
the most part.
If you're familiar with the Nations and Trap Nations audio visuals, it's very unique. They're very distinct. The sound waves and how they kind of pulsate, and the color choices. I feel like it's almost like the perfect medium to transfer into Web3.
Mm.
And Soundmint focuses on audiovisual, curated audio visuals, with really curated artists, having exclusive artists, doing unique drops. And is that what was going through your mind? Like, we're already doing this on YouTube. It only makes sense to bring it into Web3. Like, what was your thought process in kind of building Soundmint? Because from the surface, it looks very reminiscent to what happened with Trap Nations and the audio visuals created to what's happening now on Soundmint.
It is. I mean, to be honest, like I said, I just used what I know from Trap Nation. I'm using it for Soundmint, and I think that's my advantage, and that's why Paris and Brian brought me on as like a co-founder to really build this out for them.
Yeah.
Um, I think the general idea, like sometimes I have difficulty understanding like NFTs at its core beyond just like the psychological effect of being in communities and winning together and making a lot of money. Sometimes it's very difficult for me to justify like, oh, why are we making these like collections and selling them? But at other times it's like, well, it's extremely cool art. Like we're building a brand. Like my whole goal with Soundmint is, or I guess my whole goal with Soundmint based off Trap Nation success is I built Trap Nation to be a curation brand. And I'm going to do the same with Soundmint, but I'm going to do it way better and much more curated and have much more taste associated with it. I think with Trap Nation, it worked because it was so much volume. Like we had 8 channels doing an upload a day. That's 8 uploads every single day. It was a lot of music, and we built a record label off that. I think with Web3 for us, like I want to do the same what I did with Trap Nation, whereas build a really reputable music brand that people can trust, that'll put out high quality product or high quality content in this case, but do it in a way that's almost like the supreme. I wouldn't say even the supreme of music NFTs, but like I just want to create a brand that people look at and like that is the dopest brand in Web3 NFTs for music related product. Whether it's NFTs or not, it's just that's what I want to do, and it just happened to be that it worked out to be Soundmint, and it is NFTs.
So, what are some of the lessons learned from curation in Web 2 and curating a YouTube channel and curating like a brand, music brand, to now curating artists and drops in Web 3 around NFTs and crypto, etc.?
Yeah, I think with Trap Nation stuff, the most that I've learned from it in terms of curating on that channel is YouTube. Your integrity is everything on YouTube for your community, and YouTube's entirely community based. So if you let down your community. That is like your core listener base, your viewerships, or your views are coming from your community. Whereas most products and most services in Web 2 don't rely on community, more or less, I think. But YouTube primarily does. I'm taking it to my advantage with Soundmint as well, based on learning how to deliver product and keep consistent results for the community. I think for Soundmint stuff though, the patience is not as, I think people don't have as much patience, I think, in Web3, but also they're investing their time and money into what you're selling. With Trap Nation, nobody's buying anything. Like it was always a $0 exchange interaction where people would trust me to deliver music they would like, for their daily routines, whatever it may be. And that existed for a long time. Whereas with Soundmint, because there is financials involved, we don't have the luxury of being able to put out 100 uploads and only 2 or 3 succeed. Every single, in this case, uploads mean NFTs. So in this case, we can't do that many uploads. So every single one has to succeed. Every single one has to be, a home run basically for Soundmint. So the margin for error is much, much, much smaller on Soundmint, which makes the pressure and the stakes a lot higher. But it also makes the importance of actual true curation and prioritizing the product, the quality of the product that we're putting out, that much more important. And I think that's really the difference between the Trap Nation stuff with Web 2 and the Soundmint stuff with Web 3, and kind of like what I've been able to take in contrast so far.
Earlier in the conversation, you brought up an interesting point of sometimes you question the drops, and I'm going to paraphrase. I don't know. I don't want to say word for word what you said, so correct me if I say something. But I'm paraphrasing here. So you said something like you have sometimes confusion understanding why are we dropping certain things, why are some collections doing really well, except like what is the value over here? And I'd love for you to kind of elaborate more on that, because I think you're very right to feel like that. I think many of us tend to feel like that at times. Like, why is this collection selling out, raising 70 mil, and then they disappear and they bring no value? They only take value. There's no value to come back into the community. And I'd love to hear your point of view and to elaborate on that more in the context of music. And what does that mean for starting a successful music NFT Web3 kind of brand?
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's a challenging question. It's not. So it's something I still struggle with, because for me, like from coming from Trap Nation, like I was so used to, again, like a $0 transaction. Artists wouldn't pay us. We wouldn't get paid from the artists. We would make only money from Google ad revenue, paying us on ads being placed on the YouTube videos, and the customer or the consumer or the community would never pay us either. So it was always like nobody ever had expectations because there was no financials attached to it. And now that we are moving into a curation based model with financials to it, we have to prioritize much more on what we're able to deliver to the community, not just as a product, but also as a brand. Like, we have to do live events. We have to release the best merchandise. We have to make sure everything we do is near perfect, because if you let down even a tiny bit, the community looks at that as a failure in most regards. And it's just not it's not great for us. And I'm very perfect about everything I want to do, and which is also a pro and con. But I think for NFTs, like when I first got into it, again, most people still have this, I think, idea. It's like, why do projects have to sell mints for 2 or 3 ETH? Why does a company like Pixelmon need like a $7 million fundraising round from the community or from their customers to build this product? That's not how building businesses work. So for
That's
us
the
at
exact
Soundmint,
example I was thinking about too, by the way.
yeah, it just blew my mind. Like, honestly, like you don't need that much money to kickstart a business. I think if you truly know what your core product is and what you need to do to scale, you can do it with a few $1,000s, sometimes tens of thousands of dollars. It really depends like how you can sell the vision to other people. For us, luckily, Brian and our team was able to fundraise, or basically raise enough funds by himself through his own personal life and his trade. He does a lot of like DeFi trades and NFT trades, and he used all that money to kind of kickstart the company. And it was not nearly even close to like $1 million. I think it was like $100,000 or $200,000 it cost us to like get it off the ground. But for us, like for music NFTs, it's interesting because we're in a weird world right now at Soundmint where we're hitting NFT like DJ collectors, but we're also hitting like art collectors and also music NFT collectors. Typically, like I would say, the music NFT community is not like DJ NFT collectors, but it's also not fine art collectors either. It's like this small little micro community, very, very tiny. And for that community, I think people are very interested in buying music NFTs to support the creators. Where for us, we want to support the creators, obviously, and we do, but we want to make sure the product that people are buying, the reason they're buying it isn't just to support the creators. They're buying it because it's really fucking dope. It's actually a unique piece of music that they can own from one of their favorite artists if they choose to buy from one of their favorite artists on our platform. And they also get access to the ecosystem of Soundmint, which is like live events, merchandise, brand partnerships, collaborations, and the list goes on. So you're kind of getting this, like, we're trying to make it the best of three worlds and not sacrifice anything in that exchange, which is why it takes so long for us to do our collections. We spend so much time, building them.
So can you walk me more through the process of building a collection? What does that look like?
Yeah, so from like start, it's basically from start to finish. I'll simplify it as much as possible without sacrificing details. We curate and pair talented visual artists with talented musicians. Let's just say we take X musician and pair them with Y visual artist. They have to make, like generative visuals, you have to make hundreds of different layers and make sure they can get layered on top of each other with the algorithm that's combining them. It's that same system, but with music as well. So the musician has to go into a studio, and instead of making stems for a song or an album or an EP per se, they have to make stems in the same key and BPM. And instead of making, 10 or 20, they're making hundreds mostly. And they make them in categories. So for instance, like if you were to do a drop with Soundmint and you're a EDM producer and you want to do a drop with us, you would make like 25 vocal stems, 25 stems of a riser, 25 stems of bass line, chords, drums, whatever it is. And then you combine those categories with visual traits. So say you want to make the vocal category of 25 stems paired with the color of a square or something like that, or the texture of a square. And then you would go to like the baseline and you'd pair the baseline category with the background color or something like that. The list goes on. You could do really whatever you want. I'm just trying to simplify as much as possible so it's more digestible.
Yeah.
And then you would feed all those files to a server or to a computer, and then you'd give it metadata basically to tell it what to do. So that's where you would tell the algorithm basically to combine visual trait 1 with music stem category 3 or something like that. And then you can depict the rarity, and then you have all these unique generated audiovisual collectibles that normally without the music, most projects are already doing that. That's how Bored Apes are generated, Cool Cats, et cetera, et cetera. But when you combine it with music and you also make it reactive on the audiovisual sense, it's really fucking interesting because you can, as a collector, you can own a 1 out of 2,500 collectible from, let's say your favorite artist is K Tronada. Mm-hmm. You can own a K Tronada music art collectible that has never been heard before. Nobody else has anything like it. It may sound similar to other people in the collection, but nobody's truly is what you have. And it can have rarity attached to it. So say maybe K Tronada wanted to have like 3 vocals in there that are super, super rare, and you get one, like then you could also have a rare visual trait attached to it as well.
I've developed a new love for collecting these auto-generative pieces. I got to be fully honest. I haven't collected one on Soundmint yet. I've been collecting. I collected a few on Beat Foundry, only because I came across Soundmint after Beat Foundry, and I'm really looking forward to the upcoming drop. I'm really stoked for that, which we can talk about as well. But I got to tell you, I wrote this in my recap blog post of season 4 that I published on Mirror. I dedicated a specific section to auto-generative music. I think I'm so incredibly bullish on that medium and on that concept. And it takes a certain ear, while maybe the tracks don't sound as like pleasing as, let's say, a top 40 or a top 10 on Billboard. There's a new level of appreciation that I've kind of developed to that, because it's a mix of code, it's a mix of art, it's a mix of music, it's a mix of creativity. It has all these different like potions mixed and combined just to create a single track. And it genuinely fascinates me. It genuinely fascinates me. And it's really, it's like doing injustice to describe it in a verbal way. You really just have to listen to what these compositions sound like, what they feel like, and kind of go from there. And I'll link a few in the show notes. Do you imagine there being like a Grammy nominated hit or a top 40 on the near horizon?
From like a generated
From
thing?
A generative,
yeah. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie. Like I think Yeah, yeah, I don't know if it's, I don't know, yes or no. I think there is a chance though, and for us at Soundmint, like I think we're trying to prove to people where it's like generative music isn't just like bleeps and bloops. It's
Hmm.
actually real music. It can be really advanced and sound like an actual song. And I think we're gonna prove that with our next drop. I think first drop that we did with Cloud, he's an electronic producer, so there's no vocals or anything really on
Right.
it. It's very electronic and techno driven. With our next drop, Kai and Cruz, they're a vocalist or they're a singer, an artist. And it's taken so long to develop the drop, primarily because we were taking fundamentals, principles on the genre of music based on electronic music and trying to apply it to an artist, and it can't be applied the same way because there's different fundamentals to how that music's created compared to EDM. But we went through some of the collection, or we did test exports of the collection like 2 weeks ago, and I can confidently say each one's a minute long. Um, I've listened to probably over like 100 so far. Every single one sounds vastly different. Every single one sounds like a song that you'd hear on Spotify from this artist,
Yeah.
like a streamable song. And every single one is extremely good. We have an algorithm that mix and masters it based on reference files that we send to it. So we can take like a Drake song and say, hey, we want this to be mixed and mastered like this Drake song. Send it to the
Oh,
algorithm,
sick.
and it'll export it like a Drake mix and master. And we've been testing out with different songs, and I think it'll people will hear it and they'll know for themselves when they listen to it. But I can confidently say that that's our second collection. I think once we get to a larger artist like a Drake per se, and we're on like our 10th collection, and we have a bunch of different protocols and systems in place and different modes of software that we've developed that can actually continue to evolve and progress and really accelerate the sound, the quality of the sound that we're able to put out through Soundmint collections. I think you could easily see one of these generative exports like be able to be heard on the radio or be streamed on Spotify hundreds of millions of times.
So when I collect this NFT, okay, and I get a unique version of it, what do I get with it? Because
Good question.
this is a common conversation that people have in the space, and like the music is a utility. Do you need anything else? Like collecting the art for the sake of collecting the art. And I know on SoundMint you get certain rights and access to different things. So could you walk me through more of that?
Yeah. So it's so that you get the way I like to explain it is you get access to three verticals. So the first, and each vertical is dependent on who's participating in the drop. So the first vertical is Soundmint's ecosystem. Soundmint's
Hmm.
ecosystem is basically you're buying a Soundmint NFT and you get access to the Soundmint brand. Similar if you were to buy an Azuki NFT or Bored Ape, NFT, you get access to the Bored Ape brand, to the Azuki brand. But when you buy a music NFT, you're buying to support the artist and you're getting access to the artist's career, but the artist is not a brand. The artist they're a creator. They're creating NFTs for art. They're not creating NFTs necessarily to build a brand like Azuki or Bored Ape, which they're a company that hire people. So for Soundmint, we want to take that same approach where NFT collectors buy NFTs because they believe in the team and the brand. They get access to Soundmint as a brand, as a music brand. So we're going to be doing live events. We're going to be doing merchandise collaborations with the artists that we bring on. We're going to be doing brand partnerships with other live event companies like Insomniac. We're not doing a partnership with Insomniac. These are all just examples. But that's the plan in my head is I want to build Soundmint as a brand where people can collect these music NFTs because they actually love the art, but also they get access to all these extra features and benefits through the brand of Soundmint. The second vertical is the music artist. So the music artist can give whatever perks and benefits they want. They don't have to. We encourage them to do perks and benefits, but I would never put an artist in a scenario or a creator in a scenario where they're creating art because they're a creator and an artist, and they feel pressured to give all these benefits and perks because of the system that we put them in. So we always tell them, hey, look, we recommend doing person benefits, but don't do them if you can't deliver on them. It's worse always to overpromise and underdeliver than underpromise and overdeliver. So we just tell them, whatever perks and benefits you can give them. So that's the second vertical. You get access to that. Third vertical is a visual artist. So for example, the next drop we're doing with Kai and Cruz and some Hoodlum already has their own NFT collection called Hoodlums out on Sturdy Exchange. It's already sold out. And he has a bunch of utility and benefits. And I know utility is a hot word, but like benefits and accesses to like clubs and shows and events and stuff like that for his own holders. So that now gets transferred over to people that buy this collection as well. Because this is his second NFT collection per se, I guess, quote unquote. It's actually his first on Ethereum, which is super cool. And that's the third vertical. So when you buy Soundmint NFT, specifically Soundmint NFT, you get access to the Soundmint brand, you get access to the music artists, and you also get access to the visual artists. And the way I kind of like to explain this is, imagine if we did a drop with Beeple, we did a drop with Beeple as the visual artist, the music artist was K Tronada, and it's through Soundmint as a brand. I mean, that's pretty fucking cool. You can get access to whatever the artist decides to give you, whatever Beeple wants to give you through his ecosystem, and then whatever Soundmint's developing through our ecosystem.
Okay, got it. When people collect a generative piece, what does the average collector look like? Like who are they? Because it takes a certain individual to appreciate this medium. Because it's one thing to collect a music NFT, right, and to support an artist for the sake of a song, but there's so much more. I mean, you could argue differently. I was gonna say there's so much more. I feel like thought processing, creativity, and work that goes into not only generating the song, right? But piecing it all together, finding and overlapping the right loops and the right beats and the right synths and all these different stems together. And I'm a collector, so you're looking at one of them over here, but I'm trying to find other people that really appreciate this medium because a lot of it is also like the general art trading and flipping side of things, right? That NFTs kind of bring into crypto, and the speculative nature of these files. But there's also the level of appreciation. Like, I don't know if I'm going to sell my Beat Foundry one. Right? I don't know. I haven't really thought about it. Like, maybe I'd consider selling other music NFTs that I've collected because I just appreciate it. I really appreciate it. When you have drops being sold out, I'm sure you talk to the collectors who purchase these things. Who are they? Why are they buying into it? What do they appreciate from this mix, from this collection? What does that really look like?
Yeah, that's something we're still figuring out, honestly. I think we're still in a weird period or phase where the first drop we did was, I think, very like, like and retweet for whitelist, kind of like collector driven. So we got a
Okay.
lot of, we learned, unfortunately, from this mistake, but we got a lot of people who are buying it just for like a quick flip. I think that's not our target demographic at all. I think we do want to approach people that actually enjoy and find value in holding one of these NFTs for the long-term benefits and also supporting the artist collecting it because they actually want to, not just because they're going to make profit. I think it's a mix between music NFT collectors that exist in the tiny community that already, is valid, is there. And I think it's also a mix of fine art collectors or people who want to buy something truly because they just love the art of it, not just the music, but also the visual side of it as well. I think we're really targeting those two demographics. I don't think our primary demographic or community member is somebody who is a part of a lot of other larger NFT projects per se and is active in those communities. Like, I would never say that our target demographic is somebody who owns a Kazuki and a Bored Ape, because I think those communities they have precedents and ideologies on how NFTs should operate based on the success of those projects that they bought. And I don't think we can mimic or replicate that success in the same exact way. And I don't think we'd be able to deliver a positive experience if they bought our NFTs because it is a different ecosystem. So we're trying to kind of separate those two and make sure we're targeting the right people to collect from us.
The last question I want to ask you, Andre, is how do you scale curation? So what do I mean by that? Okay. For those who don't know, there's a lot of platforms out there that just allow anybody to come on board, mint their stuff, and try to sell it and find a collector. But there's other platforms where collectors look to the platforms to kind of curate the right drops that bring not only like musical value and like appreciation to the NFT in question, but also there may or may not be upside in it as well, right? So there's a level of curation that kind of like has its strengths, but one of the weakest points of curation is scalability. And versus having an open platform where anybody can go on curation, you really take time to really think critically about who are you going to let on next, who are we going to work with, etc. But how have you kind of come across some different areas, if any, to be able to scale curation, and what does that look like?
Yeah, I think it's slow. I mean, obviously, like the nuance of curation is you're playing a mental game based on like human psychology for the most part. You always want everything that you put out to feel extremely exclusive, but you also, when you do that, you also are putting on the pressure that the product that you're going to be delivering based on expectations, has to be met. It has to be leagues above everybody else. So that obviously requires a lot of time, and we're learning that as a curation platform. We thought we were going to be able to do a drop a month. That's not the case. We're looking at maybe a drop every 4 months at this point, because it just takes that much more time to develop these drops. I think scalability comes when you start building confidence as a company, but also you build really good systems in place to grow and ensure you can bring on higher volume without sacrificing that quality. I think for us, really scalability, I think, comes down to, we'll never sacrifice the quality of the drops we're putting out. And I don't think we'll ever change the volume that we're putting them out either. I think we're always going to keep them exclusive and make sure we're doing drops with the top artists and the top visual artists, and the product is just absolutely stunning every single time. I think we're never going to sacrifice that, and that's going to scale with the size of the artist and the caliber of the artists that we bring on. I think to scale the company overall, though, as a curation company, we just have to deliver or introduce more products over time. I would say product number one are these generative curated audiovisual collections. I think product number two could be something where we're building our own in-house visual team, and we're making like Soundmint original collections, where we bring in the music producers in-house, the visual team in-house, and we're creating full commercial licensable like music NFTs that anybody can buy. You can use them in your commercials, you can use them in your productions, you can use them in remixes, you can do where the fuck you want with them, you own them. I think that could be another product. We have conversations every day internally about, oh, what does this look like in 2 years? What does this look like in a year? And I think there's value in seeing a long-term vision in something, like seeing the end goal of it. But for us, I always tell the team, it's like, quick daydreaming, just figure out what we need to deliver in the next 3 months. Let's absolutely crush it. And then once we're there in the next 3 months, we can figure out the next 3 months from there. And we can figure out the next 3 months after those 3 months, and just keep building and building and building. Because I think sometimes building a company, I've realized that when you have too many visionaries on board, everybody likes to think of, oh my God, what if we get to, what if we do this collection with Drake and, Ariana Grande or something like that? We're going to be worth $1 billion. I'm like, none of that happens if we don't make the next 3 months work for this company. So I just say, like, stop focusing on that. Let's just make sure we bring in the right artists, and we'll figure out scalability over time.
Too many visionaries in one room is not a good thing.
I know.
depending on which context, and I know that firsthand. Andre, this was great, man. Before I let you go, where can we find you? Where can we find Soundmint? I also want you to quickly plug the next project as well, for a minute, and when that's coming out, and then kind of wrap up.
Yeah. So I'm active mostly on Twitter, at Ben Speaks. BENZ is my last name, and then Speaks, like I'm speaking. And then on Twitter, we're at Soundmint.xyz. For our next collection, it's called Back in Time by Kai and Cruz and some hoodlum. Kai and Cruz is the music artist. They're a R&B kind of like hip hop artist from South Africa that now lives in Los Angeles. And we paired them with visual artist Some Hoodlum, who's done artwork for 21 Savage, Lil Nas, Drake. They have a show on Amazon Prime Video called Fairfax that they do all the animation and illustration for. And that comes out, actually, we don't know the exact date, but it will probably be the next 2-3 weeks, around middle of May.
Cool. Andre, thank you so much. We got to do this again soon. I appreciate you being a part of season.
Of course, dude. I appreciate you having me. It was awesome.
We got it.